Revealed, the heartwarming journey of a duke who chose wealth over true love, forever changed. Luke, the humble mechanic of Maplewood, had always chased sunsets under the hood of rusty cars and broken engines. With grease-stained hands and a heart full of dreams, he worked tirelessly to lift his struggling family above the weight of their challenges. But in the town where porches gleamed and potlucks brought neighbors together, his heart raced not just for the hope of a better tomorrow but for Sophie, the kind-hearted daughter of the town's wealthy duke. News spread like wildfire one sunny morning. The duke announced plans to marry Sophie, not for love but as a calculated union of power and prestige. The townsfolk gathered around their picnic tables at the annual potluck, disbelief etched on their faces. "What is fairness if not love?" they murmured. Luke felt the heat of their words like embers glowing in his chest. A familiar ache twisted in him. The thought of losing Sophie to a loveless arrangement was unbearable. As families filled their plates and laughter rang through the air, the tension simmered beneath the surface. Luke stood on the sidelines, torn, watching Sophie beam with a beauty that belied the turmoil brewing in their town. It was like watching a bird trapped in a gilded cage, her song stifled by the bars of class and obligation. Caught in a moment of raw emotion, he stepped forward, his heart thumping loudly. "We need to talk," Luke shouted, voicing what everyone was thinking. The crowd fell silent. This was no ordinary challenge, a mechanic daring to confront the mighty duke. "Marriage without love is just a transaction." Luke's voice rang out, steady yet trembling. "We deserve better than this. We are defined not by the wealth in our pockets but by the strength of our hearts." His words hung in the air like a charged storm, echoing the hope and frustration of every person in Maplewood. Luke locked eyes with the duke, a fire igniting in the crowd's collective heart. People shifted uncomfortably, caught between the allure of wealth and the hunger for true connection. Luke's determination was palpable, a beacon in their shared struggle, reminding them who they were, a tight-knit community grounded in love and respect. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." The crowd shifted as if awakening from a deep slumber, drawn to Luke's fierce words. Excitement rippled through them. Could they actually shift the tide against the weight of expectation? Tension electrified the space as members of the community whispered support, rallying behind Luke as he stood resolute. The air crackled with possibility, their hearts trembling with uncertainty. As the moment hung, Luke felt the burden of ambition and the tender ache of love reflected in the eyes of Sophie, his hope shining through the cracks of doubt. Would they stand united against the tide of tailored alliances, or would they be swept away, leaving only echoes of their dreams? With emotions swirling like autumn leaves caught in a brisk wind, Luke's heart raced, poised on the edge of destiny. Would love defeat wealth, or would the formidable walls of society pull them apart, leaving a cloud of unfulfilled dreams behind? The clash of two worlds hung heavy in the air, awaiting the hope of a decisive answer. The crowd's murmurs erupted into a chorus of support. "We won T stand for this," one voice shouted, followed by others echoing the sentiment. The tension that had once hung like a thick fog began to lift, replaced by a lightness fueled by renewed hope. Luke took a deep breath, sensing the swell of passion rising around him. This was their moment. Sophie stepped forward, her eyes bright but conflicted. "Luke, please." Her voice trembled slightly, weaving vulnerability through every syllable. She wasn't just the duke's daughter, she was a part of this community, bound by its heartbeats and dreams. "You can't just just do nothing," he interrupted, urgency sharpening his tone. "Sophie, you deserve a choice. Not just as a pawn in your father's game. You have the power to rewrite this narrative." She looked at him, her expression a mix of admiration and fear. She had always respected his tenacity, but this was more than boldness. It was a challenge to the life she knew, to everything her father represented. The Duke, visibly irked, rose from his seat. "This is unacceptable." His voice boomed over the crowd, sending ripples of unease through the gathering. "You think you can sway my daughter, a duchess, with flashy words and empty promises?" Luke, emboldened by Sophie's courage, faced the Duke with unyielding resolve. "You're not just a man of wealth, you're a father. Don't you want her happiness?" The silence that followed was deafening. Sophie glanced back at her father, seeking clarity in his steely gaze. Did he care for her happiness, or merely for the power this union promised? This was no longer a simple announcement, it was a reckoning. The townsfolk watched, their allegiance shifting like shadows in the evening light. Whispers turned to shouts of encouragement as community members came closer, forming a protective ring around Luke and Sophie. "You deserve love," one woman cried. "Not just wealth." Sophie's eyes glistened with unshed tears, the chains of expectation suddenly feeling far heavier than the dream of freedom. "What if I choose a different path?" she asked quietly, looking directly into her father's furious eyes. The Duke's face paled momentarily at her audacity. "Choosing a different path comes with consequences, Sophie. Do you comprehend the weight of your words?" Luke reached for Sophie's hand, grounding each other amid a storm of emotions. "Together, we can fight. Together, we can be more than this," he murmured, squeezing her hand tightly. The crowd rallied behind them, shouting support, transforming anguish into strength. Definitions of family began to shift, mingling with those who believed in love over gold. It was a moment bespoke with raw emotion, hearts beating with a rhythm that felt almost palpable. Suddenly, a hush swept over the crowd as Sophie took the first step away from her father's side. Would she break free from the bonds of expectation? "Daddy," she began, her voice trembling. "I want more than just title or money. I want my heart, my happiness." The Duke's face twisted in fury, but underneath, there was something else: fear. Would he lose his daughter to a dreamer? He had always placed wealth at the forefront, but could love prove greater than his legacy? As rain began to fall softly around them, washing away the tension, Sophie's resolve strengthened. "Luke, will you stand by me?" she asked, her voice cracking but sincere. "I will," he said, confidence flooding through him. In that moment, as thunder rumbled in the distance, everything changed. The stakes had never been higher. What would happen next, as the showdown of wills began between Sophie and her father? A storm was building, both in the sky and in their hearts. Could love rise above the clash of titles? Sophie took a breath, feeling the rain cool against her heated skin. It was a cleansing rain, washing away her doubts and fears, merging her resolve with the determination of those surrounding her. She could feel Luke's hand steady against hers, each squeeze reinforcing her courage. The murmurs of the crowd shifted again, turning into chants of her name, building a rhythm of hope that echoed against the stone walls of the marketplace. "Don't you understand, Sophie?" the Duke shouted, his voice straining under the weight of fury and panic. "You're throwing everything away. You'll be disowned. Do you really want that? What good is wealth if I am miserable?" She shot back, the fire igniting within her. "A title will not make me happy, father. Love is worth so much more." The crowd erupted into applause, voices swelling in support of her declaration. Murmurs of yes. And finally, filled the air, creating a united front that even the Duke could feel. Luke turned slightly toward Sophie, awe in his eyes. "You're doing it," he whispered. "You're standing up to him." But the Duke, red in the face and trembling with barely restrained rage, stepped forward. "You think these commoners will support you forever? They will leave you in your moment of need, Sophie. They will wake up one day and forget you. I won tea." Each word struck like a blow. Sophie felt the sting of his rejection, the years of pressure and expectation building inside her. Her heart raced, the pounding echoed in her ears. "No, Dad," she said firmly, grounding herself in what she knew. "These are my people. They know me. They want to see me happy, just as I want to see them thrive. A low hum of agreement rippled through the crowd, swelling to a roar. We're with you, Sophie. Someone called out. We believe in you. Sophie turned to face Luke, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. He remained her anchor, the beacon guiding her through this tempest. Then, she shifted her focus back to her father, standing rigid before her. It's not just me, you know. It's about everyone here. They deserve to choose their own paths too. Just as I choose to be with Luke. The Duke staggered back, momentarily stunned. The look of disbelief on his face was startling. Perhaps she caught a glimpse of the vulnerable father he could be beneath the exasperated Duke. But before she could process that fleeting moment of doubt about him, he squared his shoulders, embracing his authority instead of his love for her. No, he said, voice cold and final. You will regret this decision. You're making a mistake you can't undo. The thunder roared, and the rain began to pour harder, but Sophie felt a warmth getting stronger inside her. She wasn't regretting anything. She was stepping into her own story. Then let me make the mistake, she said firmly, if that means I can live freely. I choose love, not fear. With those words anchoring her, Sophie felt the wind shift. Her voice rang out, unfurling like a flag. I'm choosing Luke. It was a declaration that seemed to shake the very ground under them. She took another step toward her future, and the crowd surged forward, enveloping her in their support. In that moment, the room shuddered with emotions: joy, defiance, and an old man's quiet desperation. Unbeknownst to everyone, beneath his rigid facade, the Duke was waging a battle of loss within himself. He had always raised Sophie to be strong, but could he truly accept her choice? Sophie could sense the storm of emotions swirling above, brighter than the rain. Would her father challenge this union, or would he give her the blessing she secretly yearned for? As she stood there, hand in hand with Luke, she felt a new chapter was about to unfold, but just as the crowd began to cheer louder, a figure emerged from the shadows. The alleyway behind the Duke opened up to reveal another challenger. Would this new entrant disrupt everything Sophie fought for? A chill ran down her spine as the crowd gasped, eyes turning toward the unexpected visitor in disbelief. The figure stepped into the dim light, and Sophie's heart sank. It was a woman, her face partially obscured by the hood of a tattered cloak. But there was something familiar about her stance, the way she moved with a grace that tugged at memories long since buried. The crowd's murmurs turned into a heavy silence, thickening the air with tension. Sophie, the woman's voice broke through like a fragile whisper, filled with a mix of urgency and sorrow. I've come to warn you. Sophie's heart raced. Who are you? She stammered, straining to see the woman's face. The hood fell back slightly, revealing dark eyes rimmed with tears. I'm Elise. Your mother's sister. The revelation struck Sophie like a physical blow. She stared in disbelief, processing the weight of the words. Her tumultuous emotions collided inside her. For years, she had grown up with the void of her mother's absence, a silent ache that never seemed to fade. Now, standing before her, was the only connection she had left to a woman she could barely remember. Why didn't you come sooner? Sophie's voice trembled with a mixture of anger and confusion. Why hide? I was afraid for you, Sophie. Your father, Elise faltered, glancing at the Duke, whose face had turned ashen. He promised me he would protect you, that you would be raised to be strong. But all I see is him trying to control your life, to keep you from choosing your own path. The crowd shifted restlessly, sensing the charge in the air. Sophie felt their energy around her, preventing the storm of doubts from overwhelming her. I'm fighting for my happiness, she said firmly. I just stood up to him. Elise took a step closer, her voice now urgent and compelling. That's precisely why I came. There's more to this than you know. Your father has secrets, dark secrets. Sophie felt the weight of the crowd's attention, the expectation hanging thick. What do you mean? Elise hesitated, glancing at the Duke again. He forged your mother South's signature on the estate's agreements. He didn't just want power, he wanted control over all the families tied to it. Your happiness was never the goal. I'm afraid of what would happen if he feels threatened, especially now. Gasping, Sophie wrapped her arms around herself, feeling the world tilt beneath her. Everything I thought I knew, she murmured. The rain pelted down harder, and thunder rumbled in agreement with the turmoil swirling in her heart. It felt like the walls were closing in, each heartbeat echoing the conflict within her. Was her father truly capable of this? Or was Elise's revelation simply another layer to the web of lies that had surrounded her life? Then maybe it's time for the truth to come out, Sophie whispered, determination setting in. The crowd sensed her shift, a collective breath drawing in, waiting. Are you ready to confront him? Luke's voice, steady and reassuring, broke through her spiraling thoughts. Sophie looked at him, finding strength in his unwavering gaze. More than ever. With that, she turned toward her father, standing rigid and pale as realization dawned upon him. This was no longer just about her decision to choose love, it was about unveiling the truth behind the man she thought she knew. As she stepped forward, tension thick in the air, the crowd seemed to hold its breath. Father, she called out. You need to tell me everything now. But just as she locked eyes with him, a sudden crash echoed from the alleyway behind Elise, and another shadow loomed, casting an ominous presence over the moment. What more was waiting for Sophie in the storm of revelations? Did the truth have the power to save her or destroy everything she held dear? The shadow from the alleyway stepped into the rain-soaked light, revealing a tall figure dressed in dark leather. The crowd gasped collectively, eyes wide with uncertainty. Sophie squinted through the downpour, trying to make sense of this new player in her unfolding drama. Who are you? She demanded, the resolve in her voice wavering. The figure pulled back their hood, revealing a familiar face. Reed, the Duke's most trusted advisor. His dark eyes glinted like steel as he stepped fully into view. I've come to help or perhaps to hinder, he stated, his voice steady yet uncertain. Help? Sophie echoed incredulously, feeling the foundations of her world shake further. Why would you help me? Reed looked from Sophie to the Duke, his expression shifting into something softer, almost regretful. Because the truth is too heavy to carry alone. The people deserve to know. He adjusted his stance, ready for confrontation. Your father has built a fortress out of secrets, and I can no longer guard its walls. You may not trust me, but there's a reason you're being watched. You put a target on your back by standing up to him. Fear curled in Sophie's stomach. Watched? By whom? A thunderclap roared overhead, creating an almost cinematic tension in the air. Reed shook his head grimly. Those who have benefited from the Duke's manipulations. Your father's ambition stretches far beyond what you perceive. They want to let you expose him without a fight. Elise's hand found Sophie's, squeezing tight enough to ground her. We need to gather allies, Sophie. This isn't a fight you can face alone. Sophie felt the warmth of his mother's sister beside her, but her mind whirled with doubt. But what if they're too powerful? What if isn't good enough, snapped Luke, stepping forward, the fire in his voice igniting something deep within her. You have the power of choice, Sophie. That's what you're fighting for. With each heartbeat, the weight of the cafe outweighed her fear. It became clear this wasn't just about her family anymore. Sympathy poured through the crowd, urging her on. Taking a deep breath, Sophie looked at Reed, determination lighting her gaze. If you know something, we need to hear it. There's no more holding back. Reed nodded, his posture straightening as he leaned in closer, lowering his voice to a whisper loud enough for only them to hear. There are documents, records buried deep in the estate's archives. They reveal the truth about your mother and the agreements he manipulated. If you can expose them, you'll hold the power to change everything. The energy shifted. Her heart raced at the thought of finally unearthing the truth that had lingered in the shadows for too long. Then let us find them. Sophie declared, her voice strong and resonant, as the crowd buzzed with renewed energy behind her, but just as her words rang with conviction, a low rumble of laughter erupted from her father. The Duke's face contorted in a mixture of rage and amusement. "You think you can unseat me with mere documents? You underestimate the lengths I will go to protect my legacy." As Sophie's breath caught in her throat, she realized the battle had just begun. The crowd shifted uneasily, and she could all but feel the storm brewing inside her father. "Then let us see whose legacy is stronger," she shouted back, feeling courage swell within, but deep down, uncertainty gnawed at her resolve. Was she strong enough to confront the truth and the man who had buried it? As the rain continued to pour, Sophie stood at the precipice of her confrontation. She was no longer just a pawn, she was a player in this game of secrets, and the stakes had never been higher. What would she discover in the depths of her father's fortress? And would the truth truly set her free, or bind her even more closely to the legacy she was desperate to uncover? Sophie felt her heart thudding like a drum in her chest as her father's laughter echoed off the cafe walls. The crowd around her seemed to shrink under the weight of his declaration, fear mingling with anger and confusion. She fought to keep her composure, refusing to let the dread paralyze her. "Your legacy is built on lies," she shouted, her voice cutting through the cacophony. The thunder roared again, shaking the ground beneath them, but Sophie stood firm. She knew this was just the beginning. Reed stepped closer to her, his demeanor calm amidst the turmoil. "The archives are heavily guarded. We'll need a plan," he whispered, urgency threading through his words. "Then let us make one," Sophie replied sharply, locking eyes with Reed, the determination burning brighter within her. "What about the guards? Do we have a way in?" He considered her, and for a brief moment, she could see the weight of his own choices reflected in his gaze. "There's a back entrance, but timing is crucial. We'll need a diversion to get past them undetected." "You're saying we need a distraction?" Luke chimed in, excitement flickering in his eyes as if the danger only fueled his resolve. "Exactly," Reed said, nodding at Luke's enthusiasm. "But it'll require all of us. We'll have to move quickly." Elise frowned, glancing nervously at Sophie. "Are you sure about this, dear? Your father, he's dangerous. He won't let you get away with this." Sophie swallowed hard. The fear within her was palpable, but it was overshadowed by an urgency she hadn't felt before. "I can't live in shadows anymore. If I don't do this now, it'll never change. I have to know the truth about my mother, about everything." A wave of murmurs swept through the crowd as they absorbed her words. Faces turned toward her, their expressions a mix of belief and worry. Still, she felt them leaning into her, drawing strength from her determination. "Okay," Luke said, clenching his fists. "Let us do this. We band together, and we expose his lies." Reed took a step back, allowing the crowd to rally around Sophie. "We'll need to split into teams. One will create the diversion. The other will go for the archives. I'll lead the second group." Sophie felt the group's energy shift as they began murmuring strategies and plans. Each voice around her filled her with a sense of purpose. They were in this together, and she was not alone. "I'll lead the diversion," Luke said, eyes blazing with excitement. "Keep everyone's attention on me. That'll give you the opening." "Let's get to it then," Reed replied, his voice steady. "We don't have time to waste." As they separated, Sophie felt her heart racing, yet a sense of hope blossomed in her chest. She was finally taking control of her future. The rain poured harder, soaking her clothes, but she didn't care. This storm was different. It renewed her strength, washing away the last vestiges of her fear. With each step toward her father's estate, she began to envisage the truth hidden in those archives. She could almost feel it tangling with her own memories, pulling at her heart, yet, just as she felt a surge of confidence, the Duke's voice pierced the air once more, louder this time and dripping with scorn. "You may attempt your little coup, but you'll regret it. I won't stand by and let you destroy everything I've built." Sophie tightened her jaw, her determination solidifying. You don't build a legacy on fear. It's time the people knew the truth about you. Something shifted in her father's gaze, a flicker of genuine fear. It sent a chill down her spine, but she pushed it aside. This was more than just about defeating him, it was about freeing herself from the chains of a legacy woven with deceit, but there was a darkness lurking in the back of her mind. What if the truth hurt more than the secrets? What if she lost everything in the process? As they slipped into the shadows, the stakes climbed higher. Sophie felt the weight of her choice settle over her. What awaited her in the depths of that estate? Would she have the courage to unveil the secrets, or would they obliterate everything she believed? The storm rumbled on as they approached the Duke's estate, each footfall echoing against the uncertainty ahead. Would the truth lay the foundation for a brighter future, or would it crumble beneath the weight of betrayal? With every heartbeat, the moment of revelation drew nearer. Sophie's pulse quickened as she and her group crept along the overgrown pathway to the Duke's estate. Each step planted deeper doubts in her mind. What if they were spotted? What if they failed? But the glimmer of hope remained alive in her chest, flickering like a candle against the wind. The looming silhouette of the estate finally came into view, its grand architecture standing defiantly against the storm. Raindrops pooled at the edge of the roof before spilling over, their descent mimicking Sophie's anxious thoughts. Dark shadows flitted in and out of the light cast by the flickering windows, guards pacing like predators waiting for their prey. Stay close, Reed murmured, his eyes scanning the area for movement. We'll stick to the outer walls. Sophie felt the chill in the air seep into her bones, but it wasn't fear that paralyzed her. It was anticipation, both exhilarating and terrifying. Luke had already dashed off to create the diversion, and now it was up to them. She couldn't help but glance back toward the bustling crowd they'd left behind, their energy still palpable, feeding her resolve. Reed gestured her forward, and they slipped between the thick hedges, narrowly avoiding the view of the guards. The back entrance loomed closer, a seemingly innocuous door that hid more than just simple secrets. It was a gateway to her past, to answers she had long considered lost. Here, Reed whispered, pointing to the door. This is it. Keep watch. Sophie nodded, the gravity of the moment settling heavily on her. She pushed the door open, its creak echoing in the quiet night. The scent of aged wood and dust wafted over her, stirring emotions long buried in the depths of her soul. Once inside, they found themselves in a dimly lit corridor. Shelves lined the walls, crammed with books and artifacts of a life that was not her own. It felt almost surreal. She ran her fingers along the spines of the books, each one a potential revelation. But she pushed the urge to explore away and focused instead on the archives. Let us find that archive room, Heidi said, urgency in her voice. Reed nodded, positioning himself at the front. Follow my lead. They moved cautiously, listening for any signs of danger. As they turned a corner, the heavy silence around them felt oppressive, like the walls were closing in. Sophie felt her heart race again, the anticipation swirling with dread. Over there. Reed pointed to a door marked with a faded sign. Sophie's hand trembled as she reached for the handle. This was it. All those years of turmoil and questions had led her here. Yet fear whispered in her ear, reminding her of the possible price of truth. What if her voice faltered for a second? What if we find something that changes everything? Reed met her gaze, calm and unwavering. We can handle it. Together. With a deep breath, she pushed the door open, revealing a room that felt frozen in time. Every paper and relic was a branch of her family tree, twisting and turning in ways she had never understood. Sophie's gaze landed on an ornate box, its surface carved with intricate designs. What is that? Heidi asked, stepping closer. Sophie felt magnetized, compelled to uncover what lay within. She moved forward, but before she could reach it, a voice boomed behind them. I told you to stay away. It was the Duke, his shadow eclipsing the doorway. Sophie froze, every nerve ending screaming. The moment of truth she craved now felt like a wolf-esque trap, closing in around her. Would she finally unveil the secrets, or had she walked straight into her father's web of betrayal? With her heartbeat echoing in her ears, she faced the looming figure of her father, uncertain of the battle that lay ahead. What would it cost her to unravel the legacy he had crafted? As the storm raged outside, the real tempest gathered within these walls, ready to break loose at any moment. The Duke stepped forward, his imposing figure filling the doorway as shadows seemed to swirl around him. His eyes, cold and calculating, locked onto Sophie with a fierce intensity. A mix of anger and disappointment flickered across his face, but beneath it all, there was something else. Fear. Regret? She couldn't tell. Father, Sophie managed, her voice barely escaping her lips. I need answers. You can't keep hiding who I am. Answers? He scoffed, a bitter laugh cutting through the air. You don't know what you're asking for. My decisions were made for your own good. Good? Sophie felt the weight of his words crashing against her chest. You think my life has been good? Living in the dark, never knowing it was safer. He interrupted, stepping closer. There was desperation in his tone, as if he were grappling to maintain control of the situation, as much as he controlled the whispers of the night. I'm not afraid of the truth, Sophie said, surprising herself with the strength in her voice. You've robbed me of my past, my choices. I'm here to reclaim them. He paused, the anger in his eyes giving way to something softer, a flicker of vulnerability. The storm outside roared loudly, but inside, time seemed to stop. Reed and Heidi exchanged worried glances from somewhere behind Sophie, uncertain how to proceed. Do you even know what this family means to people out there? The Duke's voice lowered, almost pleading. They loved me, loved our name because they thought it stood for something good. And you think lying was part of that goodness? Sophie stepped forward, feeling the walls close in around her, the mysterious box a mere foot away. You buried our history for years. What else are you hiding? He hesitated, breathing heavily just as the wind battered the estate. You wouldn't understand, no. You've never let me understand. Her heart raced, words flying from her lips like a storm of emotions. I deserve to know. If anything, for once, be honest with me. There was a moment brief, precious when the Duke appeared to falter. His armor cracked and the weight of years spent protecting his image bore down upon him. He was a man, not a monster. Would you still love me if you knew what true darkness lies in this family? He asked, vulnerability painting his voice. Your mother, she before he could finish, the ornate box on the table caught Sophie's eye like a lighthouse in the fog. She took another step forward, the energy shifting as if guided by fate itself. What is in there? Is it her? The Duke's expression shifted swiftly, a storm of emotions crashing through his features: fear, sadness, regret. You don't want to. I need to know. Sophie pressed, the urgency boiling inside her. As she reached for the box, the thunder crashed over the mansion, shaking the very floor beneath them. Reed rushed forward, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. Wait. This isn't just about you. We need to be careful. What if it's a trap? But she couldn't stop now. It was as if a magnet pulled at her, the red string of fate entwining deeply with a yearning she couldn't ignore. She had come too far, sacrificed too much, to turn back now. Step back, she whispered, her fingers brushing the intricate carvings, the box practically vibrating with energy as a chill ran down her spine. Enough. The Duke's voice thundered, but before he could take another step, the room erupted not just with sound but with the wild unknown. Shadows flickered and the air thickened around them, as if the universe itself held its breath, waiting for her choice. With one simple pull of the latch, Sophie opened the box. A burst of light blinded her momentarily, illuminating each face in the room. What would she uncover? What truths would finally break free? The tension shot to the roof, surrounding them in heavy anticipation. Would she find answers, or would this revelation upend everything she thought she knew about her life? The storm rattled the windows as curiosity and dread intertwined within her. In the depths of her heart, she realized this moment this choice could shatter more than just her perceptions, it could shatter her family. The moment the box opened, Sophie felt its energy pulse through the room like a heartbeat, frantic and eager to share its secrets. A wave of warmth enveloped her, bathing the shadows in a golden hue that contrasted sharply with the turmoil brewing outside the mansion. She squinted against the brightness, feeling her heart race. Reed and Heidi stood frozen, their expressions a mix of fear and curiosity. The Duke, on the other hand, had gone pale. His eyes darted between the box and Sophie, uncertainty etched deeply across his features. "No, you shouldn't have opened it," he whispered, his voice trembling. Sophie strained her neck to get a better look inside. The light settled, revealing a delicate necklace shimmering atop a piece of parchment. She inhaled sharply, the air thick with emotion. It was beautiful, a simple yet elegant pendant that looked like it held a whole world within its design. But it was the parchment that drew her in. With trembling fingers, she lifted the delicate paper, unfolding it slowly. Words in her mother's familiar script spilled forth, fragile memories born once more. "To my dearest Sophie," it began, each letter imbued with warmth and love. As she read, her heart thudded harder against her ribcage. "My love for you has never waned, even in silence. Your father." The words faded away into a flurry of emotional chaos, twisting her insides. Was this the truth she had sought? "Father." Sophie turned to the Duke, her voice a mix of accusation and pleading. "What did you do? Why did you keep this from me? Was my mother taken from me because of your choices?" He stepped back as if she had struck him. The softness in his eyes was replaced by steely resolve and fear. "Because I wanted to protect you from the shadows of our past," he replied, his voice cold. "It was easier this way." "Easier for whom?" she challenged, letting the parchment fall back into the box. Tears pricked her eyes as she wrestled with the implications of the words she'd just read. "Did you think erasing her from my life was protecting me? Is that why you've kept me from knowing her?" The Duke looked torn, guilt and anger battling behind his indifferent facade. "You wouldn't understand the weight of that decision. I had to keep our name alive. Or does it just serve your pride?" Sophie pressed, her voice rising alongside the storm outside. "The truth is out there, and it will find a way to you, whether you like it or not." Reed stepped between them, trying to diffuse the intensity. "Sophie, let us not know." She brushed him aside, her gaze locked with her father's. "I refuse to sit here and allow you to portray yourself as a hero when all you've done is hide." The energy in the room crackled, an impending storm of truths waiting to burst forth. The thunder outside seemed to roar in agreement, shaking the very foundations of their lives. "Your mother," he began again, his voice trembling, "she had secrets, dark secrets that could shatter everything you believe about who you are. What could be worse than you have already done?" She countered, desperation clawing at her heart, the Duke's face contorted with anguish. In that moment, Sophie saw past the hardened exterior. Perhaps, he was only a man trying to fight the ghosts of his past, a man ensnared by his own failures. Before he could speak, the box seemed to hum, urging her to look back. "Whatever happened, I need to know," she said softly, her voice steadier now. "Let me bear the truth, even if it's heavy." His gaze fell to the box, and something shifted in the air, an unseen weight, a decision hanging on a precipice. "Are you willing to bear the consequences?" The question echoed in her mind, and for the first time, it felt as though the air had thickened with possibilities. "Whatever happens, I want my truth," Sophie declared, reaching into the box again. The necklace glinted in her palm, inviting her to step deeper into the mystery, but at what cost? Would knowing the truth be worth the weight it carried? The storm continued to rage outside, but now Sophie felt a calm resolve take root. What else could he be hiding? She thought, as the uncertainty loomed thick and heavy. In that moment of hesitation, the door swung open behind them, revealing a figure wrapped in shadows, someone from the outside world, with eyes that spoke of secrets. "Stop! You must not continue." The figure cried out, sending a chill down Sophie's spine. What threats lay ahead? What truths would the storm unveil? Sophie's heart pounded in her chest as the cloaked figure stepped into the dim light, shrouded in both mystery and urgency. The crowd outside had thinned, but within the mansion, tension crackled like the air before a storm. "Who are you?" Sophie demanded, her voice a mix of anger and confusion. "Please, you don't understand," the figure said, pulling back the hood to reveal a woman with familiar features, her mother's sister, Elise. "You must not delve deeper into the secrets of this family. They carry weight that could crush you." The Duke stepped back, visibly shaken. "Elise, what are you doing here?" His voice cracked, revealing an unexpected layer of fear. Sophie's emotions swirled a storm of betrayal, confusion, and anger. "You let me believe I was alone in this fight. What else have you hidden from me?" she shouted, tears brimming in her eyes. "Everything was done to protect you," Elise reasoned, stepping closer, her voice softer. "Your father thought shielding you from the truth would spare you pain, but it has done the opposite. You have every right to know, but there are pieces of your family history that could endanger you if revealed." "Endanger me?" Sophie shook her head in disbelief. "What more could possibly happen? I have stood at the edge of this cliff for too long, and now I need to know what lies beyond it. I refuse to be kept in the dark any longer." The Duke's face fell, his facade cracking under the weight of pressure. "You'll regret it, Sophie. You think standing up to me makes you strong, but you could lose everything: your happiness, your future with Luke." "Sophie deserves to choose her own happiness," Luke's determined voice echoed from the doorway. He had returned, thrusting himself into the fray with unwavering confidence. A murmuring wave of support rippled through the small crowd that lingered outside the estate, a reminder that she wasn't alone in this battle. "Your interests lie in wealth and power, mine lie in love and freedom," Sophie shouted to her father, fury surging through her veins as she turned back to him. "I will not abide by the expectations you've set for me any longer." "Then you choose chaos," he yelled, his emotions spilling over. "This is not just your life, Sophie. There are families bound to us, legacies to uphold. Your decision could cause irreversible damage. Let me decide for myself," Sophie pleaded, her heart pounding in her ears. "It's my life." With her voice steady as rock, she turned her focus back to the box on the table. "I am reclaiming my mother's legacy, whether you like it or not." She reached towards the necklace again, sensing that it held more than just beauty. It was the key to setting everything right. Luke stepped closer, catching Sophie's gaze. "Together, we can face whatever comes next. You're stronger than you realize." As her fingers gently grazed the pendant, a sharp clarity pierced through her confusion, illuminating forgotten paths and hidden truths. In that moment, clarity filled her chest. The truth had the power to free them all. Elise's eyes brimmed with tears as she watched her niece stand resolute against the storm of her family's legacy. "Sophie, I believe in you. But be prepared. Some truths will push back." Sophie nodded, heart racing but steadier than ever. "Whatever we uncover, we do it together." Her voice was powerful, like a mantra. "Then let us see what this family's legacy truly means," Reed murmured, aligning with Sophie, ready to unveil the truth alongside her. The tension in the room was electric, and outside, the rain began to pour harder. Sophie took a deep breath and nodded to the group. "I'm ready." The Duke's voice quaked, desperate. "You don't know what you're asking for." "Maybe not," she replied, confronting him with the strength of 100 hearts. "But my heart deserves the right to choose." With trembling hands, she lifted the necklace and held it aloft. A collective gasp echoed through the room as the storm raged outside, and in that chaos, a singular truth emerged. They were a family shaped by secrets, love, and choices yet to come. With the power of that moment behind them, Sophie turned to her father one last time. I choose love over fear, she proclaimed, feeling the energy fill her like sunlight breaking through the clouds. I'll face whatever storms follow, but I refuse to be a prisoner of your past any longer. And with that, Sophie, Luke, Reed, and Elise stepped into the unknown together, the uncharted territory of love, loss, and freedom. As the skies rumbled above, a new hope began to rise amid the thunder, a promise whispered on the wind: choice, clarity, and courage were theirs to claim. The power had shifted. Now, it was time for them all to rebuild together. Don't wait another second. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Comment your reactions and feelings about this powerful ending, it matters. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible transformation. Your support makes all the difference.